I'm late. I'm late. I'm late. Shoot me, murdering.
Can't find my way through another pointless empty day. No matter how hard I try to forget yesterday, I feel so low. Now I see.
I guess only weirdos watch me listen. Y'all kind of joined pretty quickly, actually. What's up, everyone? I'm here to give another one of my weird ass freaking episode thingies. Apparently, that's what they were called the other night. Last time I heard something. So, how's everyone doing tonight? I'll start off the list. Basically, I'm just going to let you all know. Everybody on this list that I'm about to give to you in a few minutes or so is a serial killer for one, and for two, they are the known youngest serial killers of all time. So, by the way, everybody on this list will be at least 14 years old. That is the oldest we will be going. I know that sounds crazy, but yeah. Apparently, there's a lot of serial killers in this world, and they're pretty young. I was shocked a few years ago when I heard about the youngest was and his age, but honestly, it's just yeah, it's kind of messed up story in itself. Well, I don't see anybody typing, so who the hell knows who's watching? Apparently, take your time, no rush. But yeah, the youngest we got is 14. I thought it'd be a little bit rude to go above that because you could try for adults and stuff at that age. We want just the kids. Um, yeah, the top one. I don't think we're gonna get anybody anywhere close to his age because yeah, you'll see. And other than that, actually, it's kind of funny that you're here, Diana, because I noticed something after I checked because I was going to do a combined thing where I talked about the youngest serial killers of all time. It's worldwide, by the way, and also I wanted to talk about a family and kind of an important kind of thing in, I guess, psychology or whatever, or at least when it comes to killers. It's like the whole nurture versus nature kind of thing. Is evil born in men, or is it created through our environments and all that other good stuff? And I'm going to give a really weird example of it because, well, yeah, I think it's just pretty interesting. I have a family that I found out a few years ago. Well, like I said, when I get to that point, I'll tell you their name and stuff. But it was odd because they're from Oregon. Huh, that's crazy, ain't it? And I didn't notice that until I rechecked it, this evening to get the information that I needed off of this stuff. And then I was like, holy hell, you are joking. I just thought that was interesting, but yeah. All right, all right, all right. Maybe I should just start with the youngest one and shock you to death. Nah, man. FYI, two of these incidents, while still technically considered a serial killer, two of these incidences are going to seem kind of, I don't know, similar yet odd at the same time. But you're going to have to just understand that there's not a ton of information about these two incidents. other than what I'm basically going to tell you, which is maybe victim names and everything else is included. But everybody on this list committed more than two or more murders, and in the process took a break or a cool off period down in between. All right. Should I talk? I guess he's 14, so I guess he counts. I almost had to just not include this one kid because honestly, he's like 14, almost 15, so he just seems a bit too old for this list. But I'm going to go ahead and include him anyways. But I gotta find the information again for this one. And this does not include mass murderers. Unless they, well, hold on. No, no, no. There might be one on there, the oldest kid, but that's about it. No school shooters, none of that fun stuff. Uh, yeah, I wasn't even sure. Basically, the same thing happened in 1909 that happened in 1965. Oddly enough, um, there was first a 12-year-old girl. Wait, I'm forgetting the one kid. My bad. That would be Andrew Godvino. He was 14, almost 15 years old. Uh, Basically, he killed off most of his family in separate incidences and then killed a few neighbors. So you're going to see this happen on a lot of lists of this list. Even though there's not many people on here, but the parents thought they could control the situation, and they thought it'd be better off keeping this information low, as well not known as possible. And you're going to see, like I said, you're going to see this a few times, and that's why he was able. He basically got caught like 3 times, but they didn't do anything about it in the meantime until finally he got to his eighth victim, and they then decided it was probably a good idea not to let him back amongst the free world, and thus, that's where he went to jail. I guess I mean this was in Argentina, so I'm not entirely sure how long or whatnot, because this was quite a long time ago. I think it was like 1908, like 1920, somewhere in there. The next one was a 12-year-old girl out of Ireland, and not much is known about her. I couldn't even get a name technically on her. Oh wait, yeah, I couldn't even get the name on her because you got to understand there's laws protecting minors in many of these countries. So there's another serial killer that I couldn't get the information on that was 8 years old. Um, if I can't get the information, I'm going to try to leave him off. But all that is known about him is he had 5 victims, but the law protected his name, so we will not know how who this person was. But apparently, they didn't kill anybody else, and they were long dead now. And the 12-year-old girl, she basically poisoned her siblings on different occasions, and once they were all killed, within about a month and a half to 2 months, she then proceeded to poison herself and take her own life. I'm trying to learn a little bit more about this at the moment in time because I didn't even know of this uh, happening. This is the one of two incidences I wasn't sure of or didn't know about before I actually rechecked and made the list or whatever. And her and the next girl, who happens to also be 12, um, yeah, like I said, I'm going to try to get more into information out of that. But that was 1909. The second 12-year-old girl was from 1965, and I believe it was in the UK or Brazil. I'm trying to remember. But basically, once again, she was 12 years old. She poisoned half of her family and then waited about a month or more worth of time, and then she poisoned the rest. The first girl had 4 victims. The second girl, I think, had 5. Yeah. I mean, at first I thought it was somehow maybe it had a connection to it, but then when I saw the dates and 51 years in between, and I just didn't seem to work out. Now, okay. Um, if you know anything about serial killers, you probably have heard of this person. 'Cause basically, everybody, it's kind of one of the things you end up studying about this crap. But was a girl actually from the UK, actually Corbridge, Northumberland, England. She was 10 years old. Yeah, about 10 years old when she started killing. This was 1967 or 1968. And by the way, the known information on everybody on this list, um, as far as I know, have all been released. So basically, somewhere in this lovely world, unless they died of old age, they're still out there. By the way, yeah, every single person that I could find information on has been released, including number one, which kind of worries me. But yay. Oddly enough, she was only convicted of 2 counts of manslaughter, which is a big crock of shit once you hear the story I'm about to tell you. I guess the spy ran away. Oh, poor baby. Maybe I'll put pretty pictures and video in the next one. You can feel special. No. But yeah, her name was Mary Bell. Basically, she was in the UK. Um, at around the age of 10, almost 11 years old, she had first tried to grab a little boy, and he was found stumbling later on, but I guess apparently he had smart enough to get away from her. They thought he was about 4 years old, maybe five. Then she goes on from there. She had several assaults against her, and mind you, she's only like 10. And I don't think it's an assault until the cops actually come up, and that's pretty bad. If the cops have come by at least 4 times, she was severely abused in multiple ways. If you catch my drift, but yeah, 1968 actually. I guess they're counting her possible victims with the rest, but she found a kid named Martin or whatever, and she talking like the child. She seems to. It's kind of weird that the victims are going to start to notice what ones we know and how old they are, and you're going to start to see a pattern here. Even the young child, see, the serial killer will go after a younger, weaker, smaller victim. It's like they want as little fight as possible for what they're going to do, I guess. But she was able to lead the boy away from his brothers, sisters, and I think a friend, uh, and get him all the way down there to an abandoned house. This was a pretty poor area. And apparently, she had hit the kid in the head with a rock. And, wait, no, wrong one. Oh, no, this one died from poison. At least they're saying he died of poison. Honestly, it doesn't make any sense to me because yeah, you'll see. Because Mary has a kind of a modus operandi kind of deal going on. So, but apparently they're trying to say it was because of capsules. As I said, okay, now finds a kid named Brian after the whole neighborhood's been freaking out and everything else, trying to figure out where the first kid went, and a second kid, like I said, named Brian, goes missing very quickly within a couple weeks after the first one. And it was later found out when they found the body also inside of a abandoned house that the child had been struck over the head violently multiple times, and he was 5 years old too, and strangled to death. and he was only missing for about 7.5 hours when they finally found him. Sorry, this stupid phone backing up. All right, hopefully y'all can hear me now because it's saying something about the browser losing connection with the blah blah blah. Oh well, you can't. You can't. The child also had multiple puncture wounds to the head and neck. It did seem like the child had parts of hair and scalp and all that sliced away from his head. His genitals had been partially mutilated, and somebody had tried to carve the letter M into his stomach. Remember, this is like a 4 or 5 year old kid. It doesn't take much to probably kill a 4 or 5 year old child, but it's not a very nice thing to say. But I get, you think of the kind of person that's going to inflict this kind of damage onto a child. My best way to explain it. And you can find documentaries on Mary Bell as well. And yeah, some pretty. But apparently, that was the last victim. So there's two, and then one and two. Okay. Now, I guess I'm just going to go ahead and right to the first one because from 10 we get a steep drop off at that point. So, and by the way, this is when they were convicted. I kind of like um, with number one. I'm gonna kind of say how old he was basically when he first killed because I don't know. I think it deserves that level of shocking since we now know we have a 10-year-old serial killer amongst us in this planet. That would be a child by the name of Marjit Salah. Basically, he's from India. There's like four countries here I was supposed to write down, but I decided to say screw it and just use India. I think it was like Bihar or some crap. And he was convicted when he was 8. So that means he's already done with his murders and everything else. But, well, not convicted necessarily. I don't think he could be tried at all. I think what they did is basically take him to a juvenile home and keep him there until he turned the age of 21. Then, of course, like most countries, they completely change your name and you basically just vanish. Nobody knows where you're at, and hopefully you just don't kill anybody else. And that's pretty fucked up. Yeah. Amarjeet killed 3 victims at starting at the age of 5 years old. Yeah, 5, maybe 6 tops. But he got sent to the kids' home when he was 8, and he had already done this quite a long time before all this. But apparently he had all kinds of anger issues and all that. He didn't seem to be abused much for a kid that probably pretty much came from India. So, I mean, take with that what you will. I'm guessing it depends on whether or not you're poor or rich or whatever, in the way that you get treated in a country like this. As from what I know, which I knew, I had a good friend of mine that was from India, and she told me a lot about stuff that goes on there. So at the moment, I'm just gonna say, from what I saw in the documentary and all that, he definitely didn't seem well off. So stop, stupid phone keeps powering down. But yeah, this kid started killing when he was 5 years old. He had anger issues, didn't get abused, was known to hurt animals. Wasn't really into setting fires. That's another thing. The first one, the 15, 14-year-old or whatever kid, he had all the signs of the McDonald triad of the wetting in the bed and the killing of small animals and torturing of the small animals and starting fires. So starts to make you wonder if there's that much difference between the adults and the kids on this kind of list, right? But yeah, upon being caught for the first murder, apparently he took his little sister, who he was supposed to be babysitting, and he smothered her and left her there basically. And when the mom found, she couldn't figure it out, but she just said that the way he was acting is really, really weird. Because the kid was acting really cold and telling her he was hungry and needed a snack. Mind you, while all this is going on, she's screaming and freaking out about her dead daughter. That's right in front of her. The second child that Amarjeet, yeah, she's basically suspected something, but she didn't. She thought she'd be crazy if she, basically told the people that her son, the 5-year-old, was, murdered and killed. Yeah. And then once again, there was his second victim was his cousin who lived nearby in I guess another hut house, whatever you want to call it. And by the way, yeah, I think after the first murder, he was punished by his father pretty violently and stuff, but it didn't seem to help anything. Because at some point, I guess they figured out or started to figure out because of things he was saying, um, that it was probably him that committed the murders. And this was only after the first one. So yeah, they were pretty sure of it. Plus, also when they, yeah, I think he hid the body somewhere, and then he showed him where the body was, and rather than call the authorities or anything like that, they decided to punish him themselves and just act like nothing happened. Now his aunt or whatever, yeah, the second victim was his cousin. She lived in a whole different house or whatever, and yeah, I think I mixed up the first one and this one because this is another girl. This one was his cousin, also a young baby. By the way, every single one of these victims are like yes, less than a year old. And he apparently went to his aunt's house, but yeah, apparently he went to his aunt's house where he knew his little cousin would be asleep or whatever, and he knew that the mom wouldn't be paying attention too much because she was taking a nap as well. And the kid was about 9 months to like 11 months old or so. And he didn't try to move the body this time. He suffocated the child and left the pillow over the child's face and basically left the house. And that's why this one took a little bit of time because it's not like his mom and his dad had run around telling everybody, "Hey, our son, the 5-year-old, murdered our daughter." So you got to think that basically they're trying to keep all this under wraps and thinking they nipped it in the bud and all that when they punish the kid. I guess, yeah, like I said, what you do in poor areas or whatever is going to be a hell of a lot different, I guess, than rich areas. But apparently, he was once again just only punished. But this time, the aunt did decide. I think at the moment in time, they were still trying to figure out whether or not he was involved in the second one. But there were certain members of the family, I guess, on their side that already had known and been told. Um, what Margit had done to his sister. So when the second kid came up, obviously they're hearing the rumors and people talking, all kinds of stuff in the neighborhood that everybody thinks that MRG has also murdered the cousin because, well, I guess he did. He didn't give much of a trial. I mean, it depends on how you feel on whether or not a 5-year-old should be allowed to confess to murder, I guess, right? Um, the only ones that were willing to even say anything or ask MRG about it uh, in person was his own parents. And the aunt herself also said something about it. And my best way to explain this is it was pretty easy to tell once you asked him if he kind of did it or not, because what is reported is whenever he was asked about any of these three murders, he got the biggest, creepiest. Yeah, if you, I think in my thumbnail, it's pretty much kind of like that. But yeah, the suspect the aunt knew she felt like right away she knew that he had done it, and the parents were trying to maybe like sue things over, trying to or whatever. But now basically, it wasn't just the parents and that side of the family just keeping an eye on MRG. Lots of people have started hearing about all this crap. Now, the third one, unlike the other two, was not related to MRG. There was another mom. She was outside picking the garden or some junk or something. But the baby was inside taking a nap. The baby was 6 months old, also a girl. And apparently, MRG was able to sneak up from behind the house, get inside, and once again, apparently the baby put up a fight, but sadly, the child was suffocated to death. When the cops finally were called because this is not the same family anymore, they're not going to deal with that whole "oh well, let's keep it quiet" kind of bullshit. So yeah, the police from India, which ain't saying much, but they pulled up. They tried to talk to MRG to find out. Well, actually, I think his name would be Sada since it was in Singapore. Flop the first and last names. I don't know. I'll just call him Sada. It seems easier. And they asked him if he had killed the three children involved, and the only request that Amarjeet had was he would like a package of biscuits. They wanted him to talk. Basically, it's like an English kind of cookie type deal. Bland, but yeah, it's all right. Now, at this moment in time, this child fucking completely confessed. He's 8 years old to all three murders. And he's sent to a youth rehabilitation center kind of home thing to the A. Oh yeah, wait till you hear this. This is gonna be awesome. He went there for an entire time of 3 years, and that's the only sentence he had, and was released in 2010. His name was completely changed since then. Uh, Before he got released, that's what they do to help out killers. If you heard about the Martin Bolger, something Bolger case out of UK as well, where the two boys murdered the younger boy and did very fucked up things to him. Basically, it's the same thing there. Both of those boys have been released, and upon being released, their names were changed, and yeah, they were hidden. And yes, that is the so far. I mean, I'm not sure. We may end up getting the younger one, which I know sounds pretty fucked up, but we might. I don't know. Five's pushing it, man. But if you count them as six, we might find one. You never know. Now, there's been plenty of younger ones. There was I forget what the hell his name is, but there was an American kid. He was about 16, almost 17. And then there was another American, but he liked the poison. And the first one was kind of like a sexual strangulation type. There's not too much difference almost. It's just like they do better things when they're older to try to get away with the crimes itself, but a lot of this is pretty similar. So it starts to make you wonder, well, if they're this young and they're already facing that kind of mentality, is there a possibility that they were born monsters or in that short amount of time with just what was going on? Because, as I said, other than being very poor and living in a very poverty stricken country like India and many parts of it, um, he had actually good parents. Not the fact that usually you're going to freaking freak out and punish you and everything else. So it's kind of weird, and well, I don't know. Maybe I should just talk about the family first, and then about how I want to word this right. Well, basically, I'm just going to say I would say both, and I think just yeah, the family that I'm about to bring up is the best way to explain it because I have a family that has four generations all in line, like great grandpa, daddy, son of murderers. It went from a single to possibly a double murder to a notorious serial killer to a even more notorious monster murder of two, son of the serial killer, and then the actual son of the guy who only killed two, and the grandson of the one that killed, I think it was like 17 victims at least. But yeah, Grandpa had like at least 17 as they can find so far. But it just makes it pretty interesting or whatever. As I said before, when you go back some like 90 years or so, the information gets a little bit harder to come by. The first one would have been the great grandfather. He was known to have had an attitude problem, and I thought I had his name. Basically, the whole family is called the Weavers out of Oregon, and basically, murder seems to run in the blood. Almost like it's hardwired. So, yeah, I'll leave that up to you to decide because, well, the end makes it a little bit hard. Well, you'll see. Oh, and there's another family, by the way. I gotta kind of include them, I guess, and that's oh, he's stop being stupid. Okay, yeah, there's another family called the Millats out of Australia, and a lot of people have heard of Ivan Milat and whatnot. He was the inspiration for the movie. What is that guy? Basically, there's a horror movie series based on him. He would use a gun and shoot campers and stuff like that all over anywhere that's near his ranch or whatever in Australia. And yeah, he's pretty well known. I think he had only like 13 or 14 victims or so. But then a long time later on, his nephew, upon being so proud, hearing what his uncle had accomplished, I think killed one or two people himself with weird, crazy looking bladed weapons. And this, unlike his uncle, who would have been like 40, in his 40s, almost 50s, when he started killing, that we know of. But the nephew was only like 18 or 19, like a serial killer groupie. Something, I think it's Wolf something. Shit. I'll find it. Wolf Creek or something like that, but the crazy Australian guy shooting the campers, keeping their cars, all kinds of other stuff. Basically, that's who Ivan Milat was, and the whole movie's based on him. I think at one point he even kills the cops. Yeah, yeah, Wolf Creek. Uh, Yeah, it's got like about 3 or 4 movies to it at this point now, and yeah, that's pretty well. And it's all about Ivan. And like I said, his nephew was one of those serial killer kind of groupie people that I guess, well, you try to look for that one famous person in your family, and he found out who said it was, and you just had to get like him, I guess. Luckily, he was quickly found and apprehended. Apparently, actually, I was incorrect. I didn't. Well, he's not. They're not on the list, but both of them are still incarcerated. I'm not sure. I think. No, I'm pretty sure Ivan died. Um, But yes, this other. I guess that's the closest you can get at the moment that I can think of personally. But this other family, as I said, is a family called the Weavers. The great grandfather, at some point in his 20s or whatever, had killed one man in a disagreement or whatever. But you got to understand the laws were significantly different back then, especially in Australia, because of all the areas split off from the Aborigines and all that other stuff. And then apparently, within 6 or 7 years' time, and this is known information, we don't know what happened before or after or anything like that. The great grandfather had killed another man, apparently claiming that the guy was trying to rob him. And it was questionable to the point that he was given, I think, a year or two in jail time for the second murder. Which, in my mind, knowing what all the other ones did, I'm kind of gonna guess that maybe he's not telling the truth, but I could be wrong. But the whole point is it's 4 generations of killers, and he is a killer. So there we go. Now the youngest grandson, which is yeah, I'm weird. I know. Francis Weaver. He was 31 years old, but he had been in jail a while, waiting on fighting out whether or not he was going to go to jail because it was a while ago when I heard about this. Francis was in a drug deal that just went wrong out of nowhere, and they wanted to, I guess, steal the drugs and rob the guy. And even though he didn't pull the trigger or anything like that, he was involved and was arrested for the felony murder charge. Because his group of three did happen to kill somebody. Francis's 31-year-old son was related, is related because he's still alive to Ward Weaver the third. That's what it was. The great grandfather's name was Ward Weaver Senior. Then it was Ward Weaver Junior, and that's a serial killer. So if y'all want to look him up or whatever. But Ward Weaver the third, on the other hand, was I think about 30. No, he was 42 when he committed double homicide. If I remember right, it was either two Girl Scouts or two very young girls. If I remember right, one was 12. Yeah, I think one was 12 and one was 11 years old. They weren't Girl Scouts. I think they were trying to either pass by his house when he called them up there, or they were going door to door trying to sell something. I'm not sure at the moment which is which, but the whole neighborhood started looking for these girls because out of nowhere they had gone to go somewhere and had been missing for damn near a day at this point. So they go door to door and trying to figure out where these girls are. And it turned out, hmm, yeah, he already had all kinds of fucked up mental problems, antisocial behavior, and all kinds of other stuff. He had already been arrested for sexually assaulting two victims that were friends of his daughters, and he had been sent to prison for 3 years already for this crime, and he was back out on the street. Yeah. So, as you can guess, he's going to be probably one of the first people they suspect once this other thing happens. But they went door to door, and finally, it was just the way he answered or whatnot. And not only that, their grandma was pretty fucked up too. I forgot about her. She's chasing people around with a fucking butcher knife all the time, and telling the boys she would cut off their penises. And apparently, she lived with Ward, which was a creepy thing. Well, as I said, the 12-year-old and the 11-year-old girl go missing. So when they tell you that Delphi is weird because of the whole double murder kind of thing and all that other stuff, well, yes, it is indeed rare. Um, we already know that two girls were abducted in Evans jail, and two others were abducted nearby. One was murdered, the other one was not, but Michael Clunder. Um, and then we got this Ward Weaver Jr. or the second or whatever here in a whole different state. In 1980, was it 86? I think it was 86. No, wait, no. 19, 1992, I believe, for the two murders. Basically, when they went to Ward Weaver's door because he was a convicted child sex offender and all that good stuff, um, they asked him, I think he was still on some sort of probation or parole or something, and they gained access to the house. And upon being in the house or whatever, they were able to find the two girls who had been now sexually assaulted, and they were dead. And that's what happened to them. And then, last but not least, so far, great grandpa got two murders. Grandma, who knows, she likes cutting boys' penises off, but that's bad enough. Going to include her. And we got Ward Weaver the second, the son of Grandpa, and he, or no, the grandson of the grandpa. Okay, so not great grandson, but grandson. Like the 31-year-old's dad, basically. Um, he was arrested for the two murders, and he ended up going to prison there and became an inmate like his father. Because at the exact moment, his father was still on in prison and still alive. I kind of wanted to make the one at the end just because plain and simply is pretty messed up because he makes the rest of his family look pretty, much like not so bad people. But then we have Ward Weaver, I guess the first or the second, I don't know. He's basically the son of the great grandpa, and he's the father of the one that just killed the two fucking cheerleader girls or whatever, the 12 and the 11-year-old. And that leads us to the oldest, as I said, well, not the oldest, but the second oldest, Ward Weaver of them all. And he was a truck driving serial killer. And what is known too much, I mean, other than I think it was 17 victims or whatnot, they know for a fact he killed, but he was already into his almost 40s and all that, or maybe even mid 40s. So it's not too easy to believe that he was just one murder or two murders. No, he had a bunch of them. There's probably a bunch more we don't know about. And for at least 15 years, he served at the same prison on the same charges as his son ended up facing just the two charges. But yeah, of course, he grabbed sex workers and stuff, low risk. You're going to see that a lot, especially, I mean, just look in the news today. There's a suspected serial killer out of Connecticut at the moment in time. The New Bedford, I think it was, serial killer, and he um, has targeted 7 victims. But basically, this is what this family is. Great grandpa killed 2. Grandpa or whatever killed like 17. That is known. Then daddy or whatever killed 2. And then the son, once again, last but not least, who was just convicted a couple of years ago, um, killed 1. The only part that makes it a little bit odd is there's disparities from what I'm hearing from site to site. Is at least I keep hearing that the youngest was adopted, which would leave it kind of a mix up between whether or not that it's nature and maybe nurture instead. Because if you spend enough time in a fucked up kind of family, these things might actually occur. But at the same time, if he is not adopted, that means all 4 of these gentlemen and the crazy grandma share the same fucking blood. But once again, we have enough information to pass on the thought of, well, he was just born evil. I don't think so, because you'd be amazed at what kind of damage and what kind of abuse somebody can sustain in just a matter of some 5 years. Oh Lord, I've seen kids die far less time than that. But it does seem that for whatever reason, that murder seems to run in the blood uh, of this entire family. So, I mean, my own personal thought is that basically um, every human on this earth is probably capable of murder once they reach a certain age or whatever. And it could be for millions of different reasons. I guess I'm saying that we all got boiling points, pressure points, whatever. Um, that if you fuck with us enough, even if it seems dumb to everybody else, we will use it as a reason and probably kill you. And some might be a mother that finds out her child's being abused, or a father, and then they murder the guy doing it because they just caught him doing it. Acts of passion. But there's always some sort of reason that will lead a person to end up doing that. Until you get to the psychopaths and sociopaths and stuff like that. And sometimes those just might be for the reasons that normal people just can't. Well, really, what is normal? But yeah, regular people can't understand because we can try to follow monsters and everything else and try to feel and see what they see and all this other crap. But I think it's not going to be so simple as something to do because you have to have the mentality in the first place. Some people call it frontal lobe damage, which is consistent in many cases. Um, I forget the guy's name, but his first name was Charlie, and it was in Texas. He basically climbed up on top of this college tower um, and started shooting people the very top of the tower. And they basically had to raid a bunch of deputies in at once after about 13 or so was killed just to get to him. But that's more about mass murder. That's my point. Um, But I mean, what would make a serial killer? What would cause these people to go so out of whack that they become infatuated with murdering people most of the time for sexual reasons? I mean, hell, there was that one kid that I saw on court TV recently that killed a 92-year-old woman or whatever. And at first they just thought he was trying to rob her or whatever. Not, but he had recorded video on his cell phone and an app and everything of him doing weird things to her and stuff as he was killing her, including the part where he killed her. And he was only about 16 or 17 years old. So it's just, things like this keep reoccurring. And It's when these kids don't get caught or don't get in trouble or something that it leads up to something that worse that ends up happening in the meantime. But I think it's hard to figure out whether or not it was someone's environment that caused them to be a killer. I mean, because you got people, but can it be born? I think that's also possibly true too. Could it just be some sort of head damage or something? I think that's another possibility just the same. But if you're gonna, yeah, you might as well include all three of them because you're gonna have the types that um, just because they had an accident or fell on their head or something like that, they're out there now murdering people because their attitudes and everything about them has completely changed. They no longer can tell right from wrong because, or at least that's what the doctors think that when they have the frontal lobe damage, that they no longer have that feeling in their head of, hey, that's not a good thing to do. We're not supposed to. It's bad, and that includes murder. And then you got the kids that were abused so badly as they grew up that basically they become broken. And once they're broken, it doesn't bother them. Well, really, nothing too much actually bothers them. I think if I remember right, at least, um, the sociopath doesn't feel like certain specific emotions like happiness and all that other stuff. Now, usually it's like a anger kind of rage or whatever, or nothing. Over time, they get good at like acting these emotions out, but it's basically just an act. And the things really don't bother them that you seem to think they are. Like they don't have guilt. They will not feel bad for doing anything like this. And yeah, it's like mixed up signals. I think I've heard plenty of cases where like really bad, horrible things for you and me uh, seem to make them happy. If what can be considered as actual happy, it's weird. But psychopaths seem to be basically the same kind of thing as sociopaths. They're missing certain emotions and they lack all kinds of different things, but they're basically born that way. Whether or not they have damage or not is a whole nother matter. But like they believe that MRG would have been as a psychopath because he doesn't feel any. But yeah, the number one kid on the list, he felt no emotion. He didn't feel any guilt. He felt not bad whatsoever about what he was doing it, and he knew very well that it was wrong. But the kid really had never been into trouble at all before that, except for like the shit he gets involved in at school with the other kids that they call a red flag earlier. Which really, kids just mess with kids at school all the time. It's just how it goes. And psychopaths are pretty much the same. They lack some things, usually emotion, guilt, stuff like that. They have a really conflicted, you know, how do I put it? Like they're what they feel in the same situations of what we feel is completely different. In quite a few cases that I've read, at least. I'm not going to say for every one of them, but just some of them. It's like the person's entire personality and whatnot gets completely twisted up, and everything that makes them a human starts to kind of come in question, I guess. But yeah, that's a big difference between psychopaths and sociopaths. One is born and one is made. The child's um, environment and like abuse and all that other stuff, all that context comes flying into each other and creates a being that no longer has emotion and doesn't feel bad for the things that it does. But yeah, if you want to look them up, it's the Weaver family from Oregon. But yeah, I don't know. I was supposed to do it live last night and I fell asleep, so I decided to come on and just do a quick one, even though this phone's being a pain in my ass. I'm about to throw it at some. So, weirdos that don't talk, you guys all have a great night. I don't know. I'll probably be back tomorrow or something. I'm sorry I don't sound as enthusiastic as I usually do. But yeah, you guys have a great night.